My wife cheated on me at my party in front of our children, then we did a DNA test and we divorced. I always thought my wife was my closest confidant, someone I could trust and rely on completely. So when she took a wrong turn, I was blindsided. Tonight, I hoped for something special, but doubts clouded my mind for the first time in 3 years. I wore my dark gray suit, looking sharp but feeling out of place. Instead of lounging in my favorite chair with a drink, I found myself at a fundraiser, a big social event in our small Midwestern town. I asked my wife to dress up, and she certainly did, maybe too much. She looked stunning, almost too seductive. At 34, she was at the height of her beauty, turning heads as she descended the stairs in a revealing emerald dress. Despite her allure, she was mine, and I made that clear. While I would rather be home, she seemed at ease mingling with the town's elite, her natural charm drawing people to her effortlessly. Returning from the bar, I saw her deep in conversation with Congressman John Edwards, a charming figure often compared to Robert Redford. His presence seemed to mesmerize her, leaving me feeling like an outsider as they ignored me. I politely reminded the congressman of my seat. He kept chatting with my wife, so I placed drinks between them, forcing him to notice me. He finally acknowledged me and left to find his seat, dismissing me in the process. Fuming, I returned to my place, muttering about his arrogance. My wife defended him, accusing me of being rude to a congressman. I reminded her of our relationship boundaries, but she just rolled her eyes, a gesture I always hated. To avoid a scene, I let it go. Dinner ended, and the band started playing. I asked my wife to dance, but she refused, leaving me feeling hurt. While I mingled, I kept an eye on the congressman, who eventually headed to the veranda. Worried, I found him there, arm around my wife, in a deep conversation. I tried to intervene, but someone stopped me, warning me not to mess with the congressman. "That's my wife he's touching," I growled as I was pushed back into the ballroom. Demanding her return, I threatened to cause a scene. The congressman's aide cursed quietly and turned back to retrieve my wife. When she returned looking flustered, I grabbed her hand and let her out. The ride home was silent at first, but it didn't last long. She exploded, accusing me of humiliating her. I defended myself, reminding her of our marriage boundaries. "You're being possessive and acting like a love-struck teenager," she snapped, her face flushed. She eventually fell silent, conceding my point. The tension affected the kids, making dinner awkward. On Wednesday, she insisted we have a serious talk, which never bodes well. It ended badly. She announced plans to attend another fundraiser with the congressman, calling it a non-date. I objected, questioning the appropriateness. She denied any wrongdoing, insisting she was innocent. I challenged her, pointing out the double standard with her friend Rebecca. Her reaction confirmed my suspicions. She had issues with Rebecca, who was known for her charm. "It's completely different, you know that," she argued. "A date with a U.S. congressman isn't the same as a regular date. There's a big distinction." "Right, Emily, you can't go out with another guy. We're married, remember?" I reminded her, emphasizing our vows. "You don't own me, Andrew." "Even though we're married, I can do what I want," she shot back. "I'm not saying you're my property, but you're the mother of our kids. I don't want to break up our family," I pleaded. "You're being ridiculous," she dismissed, refusing to see the gravity of the situation. I was shocked when Emily appeared in a stunning white gown for her so-called date. Our kids were amazed, asking why she was dressed up. She struggled to explain, so I bluntly told them the truth. When the doorbell rang, I gave her an ultimatum, him or us. She opened the door to a security guard and a black limo. "Behave for Daddy," she said before leaving. Stunned, I focused on my kids, who needed me. Drinking my sorrows away wasn't an option. I planned a few FaceTime calls, one to my parents and one to hers. The kids enjoyed chatting with their grandparents. Starting with Emily's parents, I knew her recent actions would upset them. We laughed until they noticed Emily's absence. "Where's my daughter, Andrew? Have you hidden her?" my mother-in-law joked. I softly explained she was on a date with Congressman John Edwards, expecting her back the next day. Shocked, my in-laws couldn't believe I let her go. I tried reasoning with her, stressing the neglect of our family, but she seemed convinced it was acceptable. The kids took over the conversation, a welcome distraction. My mother-in-law urged patience and communication. Later, I called my parents, who were less sympathetic. My mother recommended a lawyer. After a few calls, I ordered pizza, watched a Disney movie with the kids, and struggled to sleep, distracted by ESPN. In the morning, I made pancakes and bacon, reassuring the kids their mom would return soon, though I was uncertain. There was no rush to come home after spending the night with another man. The black limo pulled into our driveway around 1 p.m., catching the attention of our kids and neighbors. Usually, they'd rush to greet their mom, but this time they stayed put, disappointed by her appearance. She still wore the same dress from the night before, now wrinkled and tired-looking. I sat in the living room as she entered, showing no eagerness to greet her. "Hey," she greeted, acknowledging our night apart. "Looks like you and the kids managed without me. We did fine," I replied sharply. She headed upstairs, asking for rest and a shower. I raised my hands in mock surrender, realizing our relationship was over. My focus shifted to making things easy for my kids, avoiding becoming a weekend-only father. Could I stay until the kids graduated high school? When Emily finally came downstairs at 7 p.m., I'd already made dinner. I mentioned leftovers in the fridge, receiving a faint smile. The kids sensed the tension and kept their distance. Alone, Emily accused me of poisoning their minds. I denied it, highlighting the impact of her actions on them and our neighbors. "I didn't break up our family," she defended, shifting blame to me. "It's up to you. If you can work on your ego issues, we can heal and keep our family together. But if you continue being petty and nasty, we'll have to go our separate ways, and you can be Mr. Part-Time Dad," she warned, catching me off guard. I had expected regret, not resistance and anger. "It's 1 p.m, Emily," I retorted. "You couldn't get enough last night. Needed a half-day fling, huh?" She paused, avoiding my gaze. "We can get past this and go back to how things were. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry, but I needed this for myself, and I don't regret it," she said unapologetically. "That's a terrible apology if that's what it is," I remarked. "You're only sorry for hurting me, not for anything else." "It was amazing for you," she said defensively. My response matched her conviction. "Your actions betrayed our vows and our family." I recounted how surprised she was when I found her in our guest bedroom. "We can't move forward unless you make an effort," she pleaded. "No, it's too late for that now," I said, shutting her out of the room. Exhausted from 2 days of tension, I slept soundly that night. The next morning, I stuck to our Sunday brunch routine, making Belgian waffles. "Mom looks rough, like she hasn't slept," Lily noted as we sat down to eat. "Maybe you should go out more on Friday nights," I suggested, and Emily burst into tears and ran to the bedroom, leaving the kids confused. "Did I say something wrong?" Lily asked innocently. "No, sweetie. Mommy probably just missed the waffles," I reassured her softly. Later, as I relaxed in my recliner watching the game, the bedroom door flew open, and Emily stormed in, ranting incoherently. "Calm down, honey. I can't understand you when you're all worked up," I remarked. She sobbed, accusing me of making her look promiscuous to her parents. "What's a Kardashian, Mommy?" Lily asked, joining us. I exchanged a glance with Emily, who composed herself and sent the kids to their rooms before confronting me. "Tell me what you said," she demanded once the kids were out of earshot. "I saw no reason to hide it from your parents since you were just following a congressman to a fundraiser," I explained. "If they side with me, that's not my fault. And by the way, my mom reacted similarly, so watch out next time she's around." "No, it's not like that," she started, then stopped abruptly. "An amazing experience," I interjected. "If looks could kill, I'd be a stain on the chair, but I didn't care." I gestured for her to move so I could see the TV, and she hurried out of the room. For the next 2 weeks, I slept in the guest room. I told the kids I had a cold and didn't want their mother to catch it. Lily likely figured out my lie, but wisely kept it to herself. A 7-year-old showing impressive intelligence. One night, about an hour after Emily had gone upstairs, I returned to our bed and quietly slipped in beside her. When the alarm went off the next morning, she snuggled up to me. "This feels good," she murmured. "It's time to come to your senses." She tried to touch me, but I stopped her by placing my hand on her forearm and drawing her hand away. I adjusted our position so we were facing each other. Some things are best discussed while looking each other in the eye. "Before I can consider being intimate with you again, you need to get tested and show me the results," I said softly. "You might trust the congressman, but I don't." Tears filled her eyes. She seemed about to speak, but decided not to. Instead, she nodded, confirming my suspicion that she and the congressman had not used protection. The situation was becoming more complex. Originally, I planned to stay until the kids finished high school. about 14 more years until Luke went to college. My love for them made me willing to endure, but the idea of long-term separation, especially with an attractive woman under the same roof, seemed impossible. Despite my concerns about my reputation, my feelings for her had faded over the past 2 weeks. Seeing her leave the bed with sadness no longer affected me as it once did. My own pain kept me from offering comfort. Who was she now? The woman I married would have understood my disapproval of her seeing someone else. Emily and I met in college, started dating 3 months later, and married within 2 years. She worked as an actuary, a job that required precision and honesty, traits that balanced my spontaneity and humor. Despite our differences, I had envisioned celebrating 50 years of marriage. Congressman John Edwards unexpectedly became part of our lives. 10 days after returning to our shared bed, Emily handed me an envelope when I came home from work. Inside was her clear bill of health. "Hope you're satisfied," she whispered coldly. "You have no idea how humiliating this was." "I may never face Dr. Brown again. Not my problem, Emily," I replied flatly. "Stay faithful and you won't be embarrassed." She hissed softly but couldn't argue. As she walked away, I pressed on. "How often has the congressman contacted you?" She began to speak, but I silenced her with a gesture. With a grimace, she handed over her phone. I found texts and calls from him, but no evidence of further meetings. "Damn it," I muttered. "We're on thin ice," she agreed, pocketing her phone and heading to the kitchen. That night, she showed me affection in bed. An instinct took over. I didn't feel anything for her. I just satisfied my needs. I knew she was trying to win me back, but my mind was elsewhere. Emily's abrupt return home sparked neighborhood gossip. Sympathetic looks from men and smirks from women hinted at rumors. One evening, Lily approached me asking about a women's club. I kept my composure, explaining Mommy's mistake and reassuring her. I hugged her, hiding my emotions, knowing this moment would haunt me forever. Normalcy gradually returned to our household, at least as far as I could see, but it was a new kind of normal. Whether Emily admitted it or not, things would never go back to how they were before. I couldn't fully trust her again. Nor could I forgive or forget the profound disrespect she had shown me and our family. To borrow from Tina Turner, what does love have to do with any of this? 6 months later, she seemed to realize something or found the courage to speak up. After that evening, which she initiated, I turned away from her to sleep as had become the norm since then. Before she spoke, I heard her crying. "Andrew, can we talk?" she asked softly. "What's up?" I sighed. "Could you please turn around?" Her tone was clearly irritated. I sighed again, trying to mask my frustration, then turned to meet her gaze. She kept glancing at my eyes. "Do you realize how long it's been since we were close?" "Say it," I insisted. "You had the guts to do it. Have the guts to admit it. We haven't been close since you went on that date." "I noticed," she said. "You satisfy me physically, then sleep. You make sure I'm happy, but it feels purely physical, and you haven't hugged me since. I miss that closeness." "You can't even say those words, Emily," I replied. "Your date. You cheated on me with him. Admit it. I'm not stupid. You go on a date and don't come back until the next day." "You make it seem cheap and disgusting," she protested. "Yes, we were intimate on Saturday night, and it was great. He was gentle and caring, just like you. Really, it was an unforgettable experience. That's why we're not making love anymore, don't you see? You gave him something that was supposed to be exclusively mine, and you enjoyed it. It was unforgettable, as you said." "Come on, Andrew. It was only one night, 2 days. Statistically, that's little compared to the hundreds of days well spent married." "We can forget it if you're willing to try," she pleaded. "Thanks for the math lesson, but I've never seen our marriage as a math problem. Would you feel the same if I did it with Laura Smith?" "Laura Smith, a divorced blonde with a nice figure who lives nearby. Almost every woman on our street watches her closely with their husbands. Wait, are you suggesting you want Laura?" "No way," she exclaimed. "Listen to your inner voice. I never said I wanted Laura. That was you." "I was curious about how you'd react if I did the same," I said, trying to clarify. She seemed confused at first, but then it dawned on her, and her expression turned to anger. "I can read between the lines." "You don't need to spell it out," I replied smugly. She avoided my eyes. "You know, because of what you did, the other girls in the neighborhood bullied Lily. They heard their mothers calling you all sorts of names." "It was awful," I told her. Her anger shifted to disbelief. Lily never said anything, she breathed, trying to process it. I'm truly sorry. You called that night unforgettable. It was unforgettable for its betrayal, I shot back, turning away and heading to bed, not caring what she did next. I have to give her some credit. Over the next few months, Emily really tried to be a good mother. I'd always been the one mainly taking care of our kids, but suddenly she was driving them to activities, supporting them warmly. It made me wonder if she finally realized that putting family first was key to keeping us together. What a revelation. The kids liked the extra attention, but my daughter, being wise beyond her 8 years, picked up on more. Mom is really trying, Daddy, she told me one day. I hope she gets a proper apology for whatever she did wrong. I tried to smile, genuinely admiring her perceptiveness. On the surface, everything seemed normal in the Johnson household. I worked hard to keep up appearances, and Emily seemed determined to regain my favor and maintain a facade of normalcy. We were just two people living under the same roof, sharing some benefits. She hoped it'd give in eventually. Deep down, part of me still had feelings for her, but I couldn't forget the 9 years she'd been the center of my world. She complicated things by continuing to contact that congressman. I monitored her calls and messages after her date, and although she kept things clean, she didn't realize how easy it was to clone a phone and see all communications. He kept reaching out, and she kept him at a distance. Can we meet up soon? I'll be in town, he texted a month ago. My husband is still mad about last time, she replied. I can't risk it. I was unimpressed. A month later, we celebrated our 10th anniversary with a family trip to a local amusement park. The kids had fun, but Emily was visibly upset. She waited until they were busy playing before she spoke. We've always celebrated our anniversary with a special night for just us. You're breaking tradition because you're still holding a grudge. When did you become so petty? She asked. The answer to that is the same as for many other questions about your date. You did this to me, to us, I replied. Can't you move past this? She pleaded. How often do you two still communicate? I asked bluntly. She smirked, pulled out her phone, and handed it to me. I tossed it in the air and caught it. I know you've erased any evidence of your affair, but I bet the records of old texts and calls are still there, even if you didn't initiate them. Why haven't you explicitly cut him off? Her face turned red, and she looked away. It was a rhetorical question, but the silence spoke volumes. In the middle of all this chaos, my job and my kids were my anchors. My colleagues often commented that I looked like I needed sleep or that I seemed stressed, and I felt like I was developing an ulcer. My drinking had increased, and I rarely slept well. I spent countless nights staring at the ceiling, wondering what went wrong. Emily claimed to love me, justifying her actions as separate from our relationship. She felt no guilt, just regret for the pain she caused me. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Unexpectedly, my mother-in-law became a surprising source of support. She repeatedly expressed regret for her daughter's actions. We're sorry, Andrew. We didn't raise her to be so selfish. I hope you can find a way to move past this, she told me in one of her calls. I know you're doing your best for the kids. Heading to the kitchen, I grabbed another cooler of beer to take outside. We were having our usual monthly summer picnic in the neighborhood. Outside, there were 2 grills going with a spread of hot and cold dishes, fruits, desserts, and drinks. The weather was perfect, sunny and around 75 F with a light breeze. The gathering had started a few hours ago and would go on for several more. These get-togethers were always fun for both kids and adults. As I moved through the house, I heard female voices from our home office, which was normally off-limits to non-family. I planned to direct them to the family room. While most activity was outside, sometimes someone would come inside for the AC or a quiet chat, but this particular space posed a problem. Yeah, when Andrew takes charge, I can't help but think of him. He's assertive, driven, and focused on his goals. Sometimes I can't shake the memory of that night. It's something ill cherish forever, Emily said to her friend. I stopped in my tracks, my legs feeling weak. How many people know about my betrayal? I heard laughter. There were 3 of them in the room. I fought the urge to vomit and barely made it to the restroom in time. I was sick, emptying everything from the night before and that day. After cleaning up, I brought the cooler outside and handed beers to the guys at the grill. Hey, Andrew, you okay? You seem off, John Taylor asked. I'm good, I replied, drifting away. I stayed quiet for the rest of the picnic. When Emily and her friends returned, I felt eyes on me and noticed smirks. Maybe I was losing it, but it seemed like every woman at the BBQ was sneering at me. Later that night, after putting the kids to bed and finishing the cleanup, I confronted Emily. She was sitting in a lounge chair, sipping a wine cooler, looking content. I joined her. "Did anyone come today who doesn't know about your affair?" I asked. She looked surprised. "I might have mentioned it to a couple of friends recently. It was quite the experience," she chuckled. "He's a charming congressman. I couldn't help but share. So first you cheat, then you embarrass me in front of your friends, making every husband aware and branding me as the betrayed," I accused. "I'm not unfaithful and I won't be labeled as such," she yelled back. "It was one mistake. I didn't sleep with a stranger in some motel." Her eyes flashed with intensity as she stood up. "I've had enough of this," she declared. Her voice rose in volume. "You've been dragging this out for over a year. Your wife had an affair with another man, someone handsome and strong. It's time to move on. I'm not going to be held hostage by your insecurities any longer. If you can't get past this, that's on you. Either file for divorce or accept reality. I'm tired of this charade, pretending we're a perfect couple. Make up your mind now." Her outburst left me completely stunned, and I sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. By the time I came to my senses, she had already walked away, leaving me alone to process her words. I'm naturally reserved and slow to react, which some people, including my wife, mistake for weakness. I rarely panic or act impulsively. The thought of not seeing my children every day tore at me, but I still held out hope for salvaging our family. I had braced myself for the worst and already had a lawyer on standby. First thing Monday morning, I took action. Emily was served with divorce papers at her workplace. By the end of the day, as I expected, she was furious. 5 minutes after being served, my phone started buzzing non-stop with her calls, which I ignored, anticipating the storm brewing for when I got home. When I stepped into the house from the garage, Emily erupted in rage. "You idiot!" she screamed. "Your fragile ego is bruised, and you humiliate me in front of my colleagues, just like you embarrassed us in front of our friends and neighbors. You practically begged me to file, so I did," I shot back. She glared at me but said nothing more. I put down my things and went to reassure my children of my love, explaining that even though we wouldn't be living together anymore, I would always be there for them. Lily, having friends with divorced parents, understood, but Luke was confused and upset. I knew he would struggle, but I was confident that Lily would help him through it. Living in a no-fault divorce state, I expected the process to be straightforward. Emily was likely to get primary custody, the house, child support, and some alimony, but she contested everything, dragging out the proceedings with every tactic her lawyer could think of, including insisting on pointless meetings and suggesting marital counseling. "Why are you doing this?" I asked in one session. "You say you love me, but your actions speak otherwise. You cause so much pain, and yet you tell your friends he's the best you ever had. Why would I stay in this marriage if all it brings is misery? I love my kids, but staying with you will only make them remember me as a bitter man. I love you, Andrew," she pleaded. "Are you really hung up on one incident? Yes, he was amazing, but it was just one mistake. Please forgive me." "I can't, Emily," I replied. "You broke our vows and belittled everything we stood for. I can't overlook that. I hadn't intended to take things this far, but everyone has a breaking point. The two-party political system has its perks. One side always wants dirt on the other. After Emily's affair, I came up with a backup plan. I reached out to a well-connected lawyer who then approached the chairman of the opposing political party. They were eager for any information that could damage the congressman's re-election and White House ambitions. Even with the promise of a significant monetary reward, they were desperate for the evidence. They had to agree that the evidence would only be revealed if I requested it. My lawyer kept me updated on the chairman's assistant's inquiries. This month, we decided it was time. The meeting was set in my lawyer's office. After the introductions, I placed a sealed plastic bag on the conference table. The chairman's eyes widened. "Dear God, is that what I think it is?" he asked. "If you think it's evidence that could end the congressman's career, then yes," I replied. They looked at the bag as if it held gold. He didn't touch it, just stared at it in amazement. "She came home, went upstairs for a shower," I recounted. She handles the laundry, so she probably assumed I wouldn't check the basket. I waited until she was in the shower, then found her underwear at the bottom of the hamper. TV shows have taught everyone about DNA. I'm confident that when you test these, you'll find two different sets. Also, here's her toothbrush for comparison. You'll need to get the congressman's DNA to match unless you already have it, I said, giving the chairman a stern look. He nodded, understanding everything without needing more explanation. Why do this? His expression asked. Because she was arrogant enough to think I'd forgive her, I replied. She betrayed me and assumed I'd get over it. Now she flaunted it in front of me. To hell with her and the congressman she associates with. Your career is over, John. Damn you, Edwards. How could your weak husband get evidence of our weekend together? Edwards raged at Emily over the phone a week after my meeting with the chairman. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered. The call took me by surprise. I used to clone her phone. I had admitted to her months ago that I tapped her phone and that they hadn't been communicating through that means. What did you do wrong? She asked when I returned her call 90 minutes later. I knew what she meant, but I was feeling spiteful. I just ordered a pepperoni pizza with garlic bread. Why do you care what I eat? Wait, how do you know what I eat? She snapped. From past experiences, I knew she despised my actions. She might have seen me as weak, but she knew better. Well, you seem to have gotten back at Congressman Edwards somehow, she said. He threatened me because of something you did but wouldn't say what. Thanks for that. My parents are furious. Yours too. Lily is avoiding me, and you can't grasp that what John and I did was unrelated to our relationship. Yes, about that, I started. Congressman Edwards, who seemed certain of re-election, suddenly dropped out of the race 8 months before the election, citing mental fatigue. With everything else in my life, I hadn't thought about dating. My daughter brought it up casually. Daddy, when will you start seeing other women? She asked. My kids were with me for the second weekend. Sarah's mom really wants to go out with you. I was stunned. My jaw dropped. Lost in the chaos of divorce, I hadn't thought about my future beyond caring for my kids every other weekend and during a few weeks in the summer. Sarah's mom mentioned it, and you're okay with that? I asked, taken aback. Well, she didn't directly tell me, Dad, Lily explained. She overheard her talking with Annie's mom. But yeah, I'd be fine with it. Just please, not Marcy's mom. None of us kids liked her. Kids have a way of picking up on things, Dad. Sarah's mom, Karen, had been divorced for about 5 years. She once had a terrible husband, but she was a lively brunette with curves, still carrying the energetic spirit of her cheerleading days. I had never considered she might be interested in me. When you're married, you don't think about other women. At least I didn't. Was I naive? Lily kept watching me closely. It's okay, Dad. I'm almost 9. I get what divorce is all about. Luke and I will be fine. Just take care of yourself. It felt like I was thrust back into the dating scene. Sarah's mom, Karen, became my first date after re-entering the dating pool, and it felt nice, though a bit forced. I told her that emotionally, I wasn't ready for anything serious, given how recently I'd started dating again. She smiled warmly, saying I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Karen offered valuable advice, like a crash course on navigating life as a divorced parent. She also hinted that I might catch the eye of other divorced moms, given my reputation as a good father with a decent career and, well, not unattractive. She blushed a bit as she said that last part. I dated Karen and a few other divorced mothers. Sometimes I hardly thought about Emily or our past marriage. While I did feel lonely at times, it wasn't enough to consider reconciling with her. I refused to entertain the idea of her betraying me again. Emily, however, quickly brushed off her affair as a foolish mistake, promising it would never happen again. A foolish mistake, I sneered. It was poor judgment, a lack of respect, and pure selfishness. You chose an affair with a congressman over your family's well-being. Her mouth opened and closed twice. She wanted to respond, but stayed silent. I half expected her to keep pushing, but she couldn't justify her actions, especially now that contacting the congressman seemed futile. One Saturday at dinner, while visiting my ex-mother-in-law, she informed me that the congressman had told Emily to never contact him again. He thinks you influenced his decision to withdraw from the Senate race and blames her for not stopping you, she recounted. I raised an eyebrow and continued eating, opting not to comment. A few months later, some co-workers suggested going to a new upscale bar with a dance floor. When I was married, I avoided Thursday night outings, but now that I'm single, I went out more often. 4 of us found a table, ordered drinks, and soaked in the lively atmosphere. I noticed 2 women as soon as they walked in. The first looked to be in her early 40s but dressed younger, trying to evoke a youthful vibe. She wore a silk blue shirt, slightly unbuttoned, and a short skirt showing off her long, toned legs. With short, dark brown hair and green eyes, she exuded confidence. Her friend, slightly older, possibly in her early 50s, looked out of place in the bar. She exuded elegance and wealth, clad in a high-end sweater and skirt. She had shoulder-length silver blonde hair and dark eyes, radiating a refined beauty. They quickly caught the attention of several men eager to dance. I couldn't shake the desire to dance with the dark-haired woman who seemed ready for fun. She accepted every dance invitation with enthusiasm. In contrast, the blonde woman danced sparingly and moved more reservedly. An hour later, I decided to ask the blonde woman to dance, but as I approached her table, the brunette grabbed my hand and pulled me onto the dance floor. I was captivated by her and forgot about her friend. We danced to upbeat songs until the tempo slowed, and then she kissed me passionately. I was mesmerized. We left the club together and ended up at my place. Our passion continued into the bedroom, and that night she shared details of her life. She and her friend were celebrating her recent divorce. Rachel turned out to be an amazing lover, and we dated for about a month before she expressed hesitation about committing so soon after her divorce. I respected her decision, and we parted on good terms. However, my curiosity about her friend lingered. A few weeks later, I found myself alone in the bar of another upscale establishment, seeking solace with a drink. It wasn't my weekend to have the kids, so I had some time to myself. A woman walked in solo, capturing everyone's attention. She had a figure like a model, with rich brown locks cascading over her shoulders. She walked confidently in 4-inch stilettos and settled next to me at the bar. I felt like I'd stepped into heaven. I struggled to think of a clever opening line, but before I could speak, she looked into my eyes and asked what I was drinking. I replied with a sly grin, feeling envious of her poise. "Excellent choice," she purred. "A man with impeccable taste." Ordering the same drink as mine, she spent the evening telling me about the boutique marketing company she founded. Not only was she captivating and intelligent, but she also ran a successful business. Later, we went to her charming apartment. She mentioned her preference for lovemaking in her own bed, a common sentiment among women, and explained the psychology behind it. With her toned physique, I couldn't believe she was 45. Our first encounter was unforgettable. She was an exceptional kisser, and I felt a connection with her unlike any since my relationship with Emily. In just one night, Jessica Thompson opened up to me more honestly than Emily ever had during our 9-year marriage. Jessica was clear about her priorities. Her career came first, and she had no desire for children. She enjoyed casual relationships with various men, even though she had genuine feelings for me. Understanding a traditional relationship was not on the table. We decided to be friends with benefits. This arrangement lasted for about a year until Jessica unexpectedly fell for a younger man. Despite the divorce, my ex-mother-in-law and I remained close, bonded by our mutual love for the grandchildren. "Andrew, can I ask you a favor?" she cautiously inquired one day. "Of course, as long as it doesn't involve your daughter," I replied. She requested that I accompany her personal assistant to their upcoming company Christmas party. "She's been through a lot, Andrew," she explained. "A nasty divorce from an abusive cheater. She hasn't dated since and needs to see that not all men are terrible. I think you're just the decent guy she needs. It's not every day your former mother-in-law sets you up on a date." "Just one thing, Mom," I teased. "Please tell me she's not boring." Mom laughed. "I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, Andrew. You might even let us keep the kids for a night or two," she teased back. Mom was right. I was pleasantly surprised. Melissa, as she preferred to be called, was a delightful woman with a charming personality and a well-proportioned figure. She had a habit of wrinkling her nose and squinting her green eyes when she laughed, which I found endearing. Throughout the evening, I made sure to give her my full attention. Melissa seemed to appreciate the gesture and engaged in lively conversation. We sat with my in-laws at a table. Mom was as graceful as ever, while Dad was reserved initially but warmed up as the evening progressed. I impressed Melissa with my dancing skills, honed over the years to please my ex-wife. Melissa matched me step for step, especially in faster dances, and we moved together perfectly in slow dances, as if we had been partners for years. The feeling of her body close to mine was something I hadn't experienced in a long time. As I escorted Melissa to the door, she gave me a gentle kiss on the lips and handed me her phone number. After a few days, I called her to set up a date. She agreed, and we planned to dine at one of the city's finest Italian restaurants, followed by an art exhibit at a nearby gallery. Melissa dressed more provocatively for our date than she did at the Christmas party, which impressed me even more. We had a wonderful time and went out 3 more times before deciding to introduce our children to each other. We spent a fun day together, playing mini-golf and having a picnic in the park. The 2 girls bonded quickly, although my son was less enthusiastic, being at the age where he thought all girls had cooties. Melissa and I continued to see each other regularly, blending our families more with each outing. Then, a few weeks into the new school year, I got an unexpected call from Emily. "I'm not sure what your girlfriend is teaching our kids, but your son was in the principal's office today for fighting. His face is a mess, and he's been suspended for 3 days. He keeps saying it started with this Monica girl he calls his sister," she fumed. "First, you don't have the right to insult my girlfriend. I'll come over after dinner and take James out for ice cream. Let's not jump to conclusions until we know what happened," I responded calmly. She sighed and hung up. After dinner, I picked up James and took him to a family-owned ice cream parlor. He had a cut lip and a scratch on his face. "You should see the other guy, Dad," he joked. "What's the truth, Jacob David?" I asked, using his full name to show I was serious. He winced at the formality. A kid was bullying Monica. I told him to stop, but he threw the first punch, so I hit him back. They say I broke his nose. It made a loud crack, and there was blood everywhere, he said, trying to suppress a grin. The boy who bullied Monica was 2 years older than James. "Will Monica tell me the same story?" I asked. "Absolutely, Dad. I wouldn't have hit him if he hadn't started it. I was just defending Monica. You always tell me to protect Lily, so I thought it applied to Monica, too." "She's really small, Dad," James explained. James had a point. Monica was petite, much shorter than her peers. I'd always told James to look out for his sister, and now he saw Monica as part of his family. The innocence of childhood sometimes surpasses the wisdom of adulthood. "I commend you for defending Monica, but let's keep this between us," I said. "I'll talk to the principal and see what can be done. You might want to update your mother on Monica's status. It seems you and Lily haven't been keeping her fully informed about my life, which I appreciate. However, it might be better coming from you." James nodded, understanding completely. Kids grow up quickly these days. "And Dad, when are you and Melissa tying the knot?" "She's amazing," he added. As I mentioned earlier, kids grow up fast, and he was right. It was time to make a commitment to Melissa. The next day, I reached out to the principal. The school had a strict zero-tolerance policy for fighting, regardless of the circumstances. The school also had a zero-tolerance policy for bullying, so the aggressor received a 6-day suspension after interviews with witnesses. Although I didn't agree with the policy, I advised James to accept his punishment without contesting it. I assured him of my support and promised to propose to Melissa as soon as I could afford the ring. Things became complicated when Emily discovered that Melissa was my mom's personal assistant and that Mom had set us up. "What on earth, Mom? Aren't you supposed to be on my side?" Emily yelled. "According to Mom, there is no your side, Emily," Mom replied calmly. "He's not coming back to you. You ruined that. Why let a good man go to waste? Melissa is a wonderful woman and a great friend. She deserves someone like Andrew." Mom described Emily's reaction as explosive. "Both my children love Melissa, especially my daughter, who admired how nurturing she was towards me. Melissa had a natural inclination to make me feel special, which in turn made me treat her like a queen. Lily enjoyed watching our affectionate interactions. "I'm not sure if you two are sweet or sickening," Lily teased one day, "but I love being around you both." A couple of months later, we had a small, intimate wedding with just our 3 children, my parents, and my ex-in-laws. The court clerk who officiated the ceremony was taken aback when my ex-mother-in-law stood as Melissa's maid of honor. "It's quite a story," I chuckled when she asked about it. No one expects to be visited by federal marshals, much like no one expects the Spanish Inquisition from Monty Python's flying circus. I was completely blindsided when two officials walked into my office on a Monday morning. They were investigating a former congressman's altercation and subsequent injury in the restroom of an upscale restaurant in Houston, Texas. My name, along with those of several other aggrieved husbands, came up as potential suspects. I can't say I'm sorry to hear about the congressman's troubles. No one deserves it more, I remarked to the marshals. You do realize he slept with my then-wife almost 4 years ago. If I had any intention of doing something, wouldn't I have acted sooner? I retorted sarcastically. The interrogation by the federal agents was just the beginning. A week later, a reporter from the Associated Press showed up at my office seeking details about the incident. He had obtained a confidential list of 26 women the congressman allegedly had affairs with during his time in office. Several people knew about Emily's involvement with the congressman, though I didn't publicize it. Emily likely told more people than I did, as she took pride in her conquest. I wondered how proud she felt when the news of the congressman's misconduct broke, implicating her as one of his lovers. "Why did you tell him?" she screamed over the phone. "I didn't. He told me your name was on the congressman's list. All I did was confirm it. I wasn't going to lie to protect you from embarrassment. I'm not promiscuous," she yelled before I ended the call. I couldn't help but laugh. I even thought about taking a long vacation when the news article came out. She messed up, but I was going to suffer the embarrassment too. Melissa convinced me otherwise. Don't engage. Stick to the truth. She cheated on you, you divorced her, and you moved on, Melissa advised. Unfortunately, my children were going to face verbal bullying because of their mother's actions. We would have to address the fact that their mother was a self-centered cheater for years to come. I felt sorry for my ex-in-laws, who had become close friends. After the article came out, we invited them to stay with us for a couple of weeks. During that time, they mostly stayed indoors and avoided answering their phones. I love my daughter, but I'm deeply ashamed that she thought it was acceptable to engage in promiscuous behavior, Dad confessed. No father wants his daughter to be perceived that way. As time passed, the scandal died down and life returned to normal. My children began spending more time with Melissa, Monica, and me at our house. Our home naturally became the neighborhood kids' hangout spot. Initially, Emily objected, but things eventually smoothed over. I made sure Lily and James kept open communication with Emily to prevent any accusations of alienation. Mom and Dad's frequent visits helped ease tensions. When the kids were with me, we rarely discussed Emily. Although she remained their mother, she was now an ex in my life. The kids respected Melissa and even started calling her Mom. Initially, Emily's parents were uncomfortable with this, but they soon accepted it as they had been close to Melissa before our marriage. Amidst all the upheaval, I paid little attention to Emily's dating life. I knew she occasionally dated based on what the kids said, but I was shocked when Lily announced one afternoon that her mother was engaged. A wave of sadness hit me for what might have been, but then I felt Melissa's comforting embrace, and my sorrow quickly turned to joy for what I had now.